কথা বললেন না ইয়ার সময়, হ্যাঁ কথা চলে আসবে।
Good afternoon. May I ask everybody to get seated and the cameras to go on their tripods, please, so that we can start with this press conference. While the cameras sort out their final location, I would like to make one announcement. Since the EU election observation mission is, at the end of the day, a European Union entity, we have to adhere to European regulations and laws, and that includes protection of privacy. So we are live streaming this event on Facebook. Photographs are being taken, and the material might be used for any publications within the European sphere. So if you do not want to be on a photograph, I kindly ask you to find a seat on the from my side on the right-hand side in the back. That's where you have kind of a dead corner. Thank you very much. And can I also ask the photographers in the front to find their spot? Good afternoon, and thank you very much for attending this press conference of the European Union at the occasion of the presentation of our preliminary statement. Allow me to introduce our head table. We have here in the middle our chief observer, Ivars Ijabs. Next to me is Mr. Tomáš Zdechovský, and on the far end we have our deputy chief observer in Thalase. And I pass now the floor to our chief observer.
Yes, thank you very much, Eberhard. Good afternoon, Excellencies, my fellow MEPs, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the press. I would like to begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to Bangladesh Election Commission and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for inviting the European Union to observe this historic election. By accepting this invitation, the European Union has underscored its unwavering commitment to Bangladeshi democracy. We Europeans see Bangladesh as an important and reliable partner that shares the same values of equality and justice. I also wish to extend my thanks to the state institutions, the judiciary, civil society, security services, the media, political parties, and the people of Bangladesh for their openness and cooperation throughout our presence here in the country. It has been an honor for the European Union Election Observation Mission to be part of this pivotal moment of Bangladesh's history. Before I start with our assessment, I would like to stress some key points. First of all, these were the first credible elections since 2008, a testament to citizens' commitment to restoring democratic governance and the rule of law. This is renewed momentum, and it paves the way for the next phase of reform. Secondly, these elections were genuinely competitive and pluralistic, and the young people who led the 2024 uprising had their first opportunity to reshape the country's democratic trajectory. Thirdly, the professionalism and resolve of the Election Commission, of the Bangladesh Election Commission, has to be acknowledged. The Commission worked independently and transparently, while the commitment of election officials to uphold democratic standards has set a new benchmark for future elections in Bangladesh. However, disinformation, the ever-present fear of mob violence, and the strikingly narrow political space given to the women harmed the democratic process. I trust that the newly elected leaders will have the strengths required to make women's choices heard in the political arena. Ladies and gentlemen, now a few words about the EU election observation mission. Our mission started at the end of December. In mid-January, we deployed already our 56 long-term observers to all 64 administrative districts of Bangladesh. For election day, our mission has reinforced with 90 short-term observers arriving from Europe and Canada, and 35 locally recruited diplomats from EU member states and partner countries. A delegation of members of the European Parliament further broadens our scope of observation. At full force, there were more than 200 EU observers from all EU member states, as well as from Canada, Norway, and Switzerland. On election day, EU observers visited 1,805 polling centers all across the country, in cities, towns, and villages. After the polls were closed, our teams observed the ballot counting, and late at night on the 12th of February, all were present at the tabulation of the results. As you can see, this was a large-scale operation that has produced an independent, fact-based assessment on the extent to which these historic elections were conducted in line with international standards and national law. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let me present you our preliminary findings. I will start with reading out the first summary paragraph of our report. First, the 2026 parliamentary elections were credible and competently managed, marking a pivotal step towards restoring democratic governance and rule of law. For the first time since 2008, elections were genuinely competitive, conducted under a renewed legal framework that largely accords with international standards and with fundamental freedoms broadly respected. Sporadic, localized political violence, however, often triggered by manipulated online narratives, harmed the democratic process, while the strikingly limited political space allowed to women undermines their.
The Bangladesh Election Commission worked independently and transparently, maintaining the confidence of stakeholders and upholding the integrity of the polls. Now let me move on to the more detailed assessment. Let us start with the assessment of the laws governing the elections. The mission has concluded that the electoral legal framework is conducive to the conduct of democratic elections, and that the 2025 amendments strengthening inclusion and credibility. However, further reform is needed to enhance legal certainty and to close loopholes that diminish institutional accountability and transparency. We saw the recently appointed Election Commission adopting a proactive approach to rebuilding public trust in the elections. And we note the support that was afforded to the Commission by the interim government and other stakeholders. The Commission worked transparently, responded promptly to media queries, shared information of public interest, and maintained dialogue with political parties. However, there were also some setbacks. For example, the stringent campaign rules were not consistently enforced, which at times was feeding perceptions of bias and contributed to grievances voiced by many political parties, including also two major coalitions. The Commission delivered election day preparation professionally and on time, lending credibility to the polls. 770,000 voters living abroad were enfranchised to a postal ballot. the training of more than 850,000 polling staff was well delivered and the distribution of materials went smoothly. On election day, we saw dedicated poll workers who managed their voting efficiently. We also witnessed a constant presence of party agents from both major coalitions, which enhanced integrity. Regrettably, most voting places were not accessible to voters with reduced mobility, limiting their right to independent participation. Vote count and tabulation of results was competently handled, yet some integrity safeguards were not uniformly implemented. Whilst efficient, the requisite checks were not always performed during ballot count, and the 3 cases observed by the Electoral Observation Mission tabulation lacked transparency. On the positive, party agents could follow the process, and regular updates on constituency results were released by returning officers, which helped to build public confidence in the accuracy of these results. It is important to stress that the foundation for these genuinely competitive elections were laid already during the candidate registration process. The Election Commission efficiently handled more than 600 appeals and reinstated 2/3 of appellants, upholding the right to stand, which is a fundamental right in a truly democratic election. More than 2,000 candidates were on the ballot, which meant voters were offered a broad range of political alternatives. Our observers were present in more than 200 campaign events. We talked with lead candidates and parties in the capital and in the districts, followed up on reports about irregularities, and analyzed digital campaigns. Based on this wealth of knowledge, we can conclude that the campaign was dynamic and candidates enjoyed freedom of assembly and of expression. We also note that by the end of the campaign, the rhetoric heightened and focus shifted from policies to personal insults and mutual allegation of misconduct made during the rallies and amplified on social media. Intra-party conflicts and local patronage networks also affected the playing field in some constituencies. And here I would like to draw your attention to a notable setback of this historic election. Women stood at the forefront of the July mass uprising. They were fearless, calling for good governance and eradication of corruption. No, just 21 months later, women candidates were almost invisible in these elections. This is regrettable. Only 4% of the contestants were women, which evidences a clear lack of political will to advance women in national politics, even as there is a commitment to do so in the July Charter. Other deterrents to women participation included patriarchy, discrimination, digital harassment, and character assassination. We spoke to many representing indigenous communities and religious minorities. Here in Dhaka, in Jingdong Hill Track, in Sylhet, and in many other places. Sadly, they felt estranged from these elections as their hopes for change remain unfulfilled. They were disappointed at the absence of special measures to ensure their political representation and about the increasing religious overtones within public discourse, including online. Sporadic political violence peaked during the first week of February, but the impact of these incidents remained localized and did not indicate any systematic pattern. The EOM, our Electoral Observation Mission, received reports at least 56 campaign-related incidents involving physical violence, resulting in at least 200 casualties in 27 districts. Episodes of intimidation and harassment of campaigners, particularly women, and attacks on property were also reported to us. And let me stress here, even if those accidents were localized, any type of violence, be it physical or digital, has no place in democratic elections. Our condolences go to the families of all the victims. The online campaign for the 55.6 million strong youth vote was fierce, leaving little space for respectful political debate. Our social media monitoring unit identified at least 23 viral disinformation incidents with manipulative content reaching at least 1 million views each within 24 hours. Influencers and deceptive media accounts were the prime vector of disinformation on Facebook and on TikTok. Some of them were from outside Bangladesh, but the majority originated in Bangladesh. It was encouraging to see how national fact-checking countered those narratives. However, the social media platforms were too slow to respond. Our media monitoring noted that several private media outlets made efforts to offer a balanced coverage of elections, and there were talk shows with candidates in several constituencies. It was a positive practice that helped voters to make a really informed choice. However, the media reform process has been lacking, and news outlets still are vulnerable to pressures that foster self-censorship and reduce the space for analytical reporting. Our assessment of this historic election would be incomplete without acknowledging the importance of civil society. Many grassroots and national organizations made commendable efforts to restore public trust in the electoral process. 81 citizen observer groups were accredited to monitor the polls, adding to transparency. Young activists engaged in nationwide voter education activities aimed to close digital literacy gaps and advocated enhanced respect for human rights. Their voices are giving confidence in the democratic development. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, Bangladesh has made a pivotal step to restore public trust in democratic elections and good governance. However, there is still room and more work needed for refining this process. The newly elected parliament will have an important task in the months to come to meet voters' expectations and to continue with advancing the reform agenda. It is also time to abandon the old practices of excluding women from political arena or to solve political disputes with fists and not with ideas. Such practices no longer reflect the maturity of Bangladesh democracy. The new leadership of the country now has a unique opportunity to chart a new course, one that promotes independent institutions, respect for human rights and accountability. Bangladesh is now very well suited to set an example and ensure that the democratic process serves all its people. Our mission will contribute to observe the post-election environment. I will continue to observe our post-election environment. We will publish a final report, including recommendations for future elections in the coming months. So let me conclude by saying that we really appreciate the calm and the responsive way how political leaders have approached this post-election situations. And once again, thank you for your warm hospitality and for your collaboration. Thank you very much.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear all friends of democracy, it's my pleasure to address you today on behalf of our 7 members parliamentary delegation. My colleagues and I represent a large political spectrum and come from 6 different member states of European Union. We wish to express our gratitude to the Bangladeshi authorities for having invited us to observe this election. Equally, we warmly thank the people of this country for having made us feel so welcome during our time here. First, I want to express our full endorsement to the finding present today by my colleague, the Chief Observer Ivars Ijabs. I sincerely thank him for his excellent work and outstanding cooperation with him and his great team. During the past few days, we met with state authorities, including Chief Advisor Professor Yunus, the Election Commission, political party representatives, civil society organization, and also the media representatives. The Chief Observer has already given a detailed overview of the mission's preliminary finding and therefore want to focus on these issues that we as elected politicians consider crucial. Please allow me first to make a general assessment before focusing on the specific elements of this election process. Specifics are important, but equally important is the big picture. This was a credible vote which rekindled democracy in Bangladesh and gave citizens their elections rights back. This is a remarkable achievement. According to our interlocutors, the electoral campaign was largely peaceful. In the weeks leading to 12th of February, however, the country saw some election-related violence, included partisan tension, which led to loss of lives. As European Parliament election observation delegation around the world have repeatedly said, even one loss of life is one too many. On the basis of what we have seen during the past days, the exercise of the freedoms of expression, association, assembly, and media was respected. In the course of our meetings, we heard that the Election Commission managed the election preparation efficiently and professionally and in accordance with the legal framework, which was reformed following the July 2024 uprising. Without the students' uprising, there would have been no election on Thursday. Bangladesh and we all are in debt to the brave young men and women also who took the streets with so many even paying to ultimate price. Their generation needs to be at the table when the decision about the future of the country are taken. According to our observation, the Electoral Commission acted in a non-partisan, independent manner. Moreover, it stood ready to resolve any matters which were brought to its attention. The country is also right to be proud for having extended postal voting system to its citizens abroad. According to our interlocutors, the voters and candidate registration process were largely inclusive. Regrettably, female parliamentary candidates constitute just under 4% of all registered candidates. Despite women being 51% of the country's population, women were largely missing in the campaign process for many reasons, including threats and harassment. It's clear that much needs to be done to ensure a strong participation and representation of women in the country's political sphere. According to representatives of several civil society organizations with whom we spoke, this election were subject to campaign finance rules, which were weakly enforced. This had some negative impact on equity in the campaign. Concerning the electoral dispute resolution, our interlocutors expressed confidence in the independence and fairness of the judiciary. Turning to election day, 3 European Parliament teams observed in Dhaka Central, in Dhaka South, and Padma Bridge area, and Dhammanrai and surrounding area. The polling booths which we observed were mostly well organized and transparent, and the atmosphere on election day was peaceful in those places. Despite the considerable logistical challenges linked to the vast population of the country, the staff of the polling station did their best of ensure the smooth implementation of the procedure. They deserve our sincere thanks and congratulations. Nevertheless, we also observe that the closing and counting procedure were relatively slow and cumbersome. Above all, I would like to express our administration for the civic spirit and enthusiasm shown by people of Bangladesh who demonstrated their commitment to democracy. We sensed their pride in deciding on future in their country. I want to turn now to the post-electoral period. First of all democratic politicians, my colleagues, I call on political leaders of the country to ensure that their supporters shall refrain from violent acts. Any dispute regarding the electoral process should be addressed peacefully according to the established legal procedure. It is also crucial that the judiciary shall perform its constitutional duty in an independent and impartial manner. Before concluding, please allow me to make one final remark. During our time here, we witnessed the considerable progress which Bangladesh has made in the past 2 years, both in the terms of governance and the management of the economy, for which we congratulate the interim government. These are achievements which are applauded. Following Thursday elections and the yes vote for to the referendum, the country is now entering new crucial phase. We urge the new parliament and government backed by all other state institutions to ensure that the approved reforms shall be implemented, but also to demonstrate the political will to ensure that all citizens of this country, independently of their religion and ethnicity, feel protected and included. As European parliamentarians, we stand ready to assist them in this process for the benefit of this great country and its great people. Thank you very much for the attention.
We open now the floor for questions. We take 3 questions at a time. Please introduce yourself by name and also tell us for which media outlet you work. We start with the gentleman in blue back there.
Thank you. My name is Moshad Hasib. I work for Channel 24. I'm here. Yeah. It's really interesting because for the last few years we've been hearing our election was not credible. The things we were saying, it's really causing pain in my stomach because it seems our elections is quite acceptable. Anyways, jokes apart. So what I really want to know, what are the biggest, as it's more participatory compared to the last few elections. So was there any place that was really concerning and that can be rearranged or sort of redesigned for the next election as an example?
Now we have the second question here.
Hello, I am Amina Hira. I work for Daily Kalbala. So my question is that in this election, we know that Army League is not in here. So how do you think that it's impact of this election? Army League is not here. So we saw that referendum, more than 30% of referendum ballot were cast as no. So how do you think that its impact for particularly Army League or any other reason? And we know that you deployed 64 districts to your observer for observing. So what is their observation?
Very good.
And now we have the third question on that corner, please.
Hi, I'm Tanvir Chaudhary with Al Jazeera English TV. I have two interlaced questions. One of the key observations you all made about women's participation, 4% during the election, although the country's been ruled by 35 years by women. What exactly specifically would you say the reason for limited participation? Was there some sort of limitation from the system or the governance process or the institution itself? My second question is, one of the 2 largest parties, which is the Awami League, was conspicuously absent in this election, and they have a loyalist support at least between 18 to 20%. Would you make a comment on that, if you don't mind?
Yes, thank you very much for all those relevant questions. As for the first question about what could be rearranged and what could be redesigned, I think that the women's participation is probably the issue that is of the greatest concern, according to our observers. As for the very understanding of why is this important, democracy, this is really about civic equality, when each and every Bangladeshi citizen can participate both as a voter and as a candidate, and of course in campaigning and so on and so forth. And if we see here this balance, this is basically hurting the decision-making of the Bangladeshi people themselves, and in that sense I would just call the Bangladeshi authorities to implement what they have already agreed to do. Bangladesh is a part of the so-called Women's Convention, and which implies that the participation of women has to be enhanced and fostered. So we would just expect that these obligations are fulfilled.
the question which was also asked by two of you, the question about the exclusion of a certain political party from this political process, let me formulate it like that. We are here to observe the elections. What we are interested in is the process of the elections. Transitional justice is an extremely painful and sensitive issue in many countries, including many European countries. But of course, elections is the way to move forward. And of course, what we have observed in these elections is that they have been hugely competitive, and that the choice presented to the voters with these 2,000 candidates has been considerable. And in this sense, I think this is really a way forward for the Bangladesh democracy to go. As for what was asked by the colleague about the outcome of the referendum, I mean, but it is again, if you look at the result, one might say was I mean, this is rather a convincing majority for a yes vote, but the European Union is usually not observing any referendums, so that's why this hasn't been at the center of our observation, because this is not our mandate. We are about elections. But at the same time, of course, we have understood and taken into account this context where the referendum plays a role. I have to say that, of course, the referendum vote has really given an obligation for the newly elected parliament and newly elected government, well, which is most probably going to be elected in the nearest future, to go on with the implementation of this reform agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shahnas. Working with the Video Observer, my question is to you, Mr. Ivars. Anyway, my question is very specific. I just want to know your happiness or your observation about the election day turnout, the voters' turnout. How do you feel with the turnout? Do you see any difference between the election commission has been claimed or your observation? Because there are many media, even the social medias, they have also raised the issue. Thank you so much. And my next question is to you, whether you people are going to submit any final report after the violence or anything, the post-election. Anyway, thank you so much.
My name is Simon. I work in the Daily Color, one of the leading newspaper in Bangladesh. My question is that you constantly talking about the participatory election. So as we know that one of the country's major political party, Awami League, couldn't participate in this election. So in this regard, how this election can be considered as a participatory election and inclusive? Thank you.
Third question, second row here.
Hello, thank you. It's Ivars Ijabs. I work for private television channel. It's Bangladesh. My question is about the turnout what actually took place in our voting. They are about 60%. So is it acceptable to you? And then another question is that you mentioned that the counting, actually voter counting was very slow. So we have witnessed that we have been working with the election commission closely, providing technical supports and other supports. So why this counting is slow? Did you observe it?
Thank you very much. First of all, addressing the question about the turnout, which also relates to what was asked by the colleague on my right. Well, as for the turnout, we all know that the turnout historically has been in Bangladesh both higher and lower, and in that sense we really see, well, this particular outcome is striking the middle somehow. Well, if you take general terms, we are not looking at turnout only as a number in terms of percentage, because you all know that in many democratic countries, for example in Europe, in most countries, including my own, the turnout is shrinking, well, in some countries it's bigger, in some countries it's lower. This is a great concern for all democracies, I have to
say. But what is important, this is not just about numbers. Turnout is very much also participation, and this is the answer to your question, is whether all relevant groups in society are taking part in the election, and no one is excluded from participation, and that's why, as I just said, well, the participation in this sense really includes all political groups and all the social groups that have their interest to express in those elections. And in that sense, I would say that the turnout is not the only thing to take into account when speaking about participatory elections. What was this, sir? Okay. Yep. Oh, the counting of the votes. This is, of course, also of great interest to us, and we will, just as that was said in my introductory remarks, we are not leaving the country now. You will be all given, I suppose, online our preliminary report after this press conference, which would explain on many of the things that have been mentioned in my speech, but the final report is going to be presented in a 2-month time, something like in late April, early May, when we will really gather all the implementation, all the information, when we consolidate all our findings, and this is where we come back also with recommendations for the Bangladesh authorities. Thank you very much.
Hello, sir. It's Damzi Manur. I'm from our state of News Agency. So you have mentioned that you observed the counting as a process as well, and we know that the last time Jamaat led alliances alleged regarding the counting system, especially two seats in Dhaka. They alleged that there was rigging and kind of election engineering. What's your observation about that regarding the delegations? Thank you.
Yes, I'm Imran. My question is related to previous my body. Is it working?
Yes. Yeah, it is.
It is working.
We didn't see you.
Okay, no problem. So yesterday, the 11-party alliance held a press briefing where they brought allegation against the election commission on the result manipulation, specifically Dhaka 18 and Dhaka 13, in this constituency, and a post-election violence against their workers and supporters. What's your observation on it?
Hello, my name is Isha Dhanumki. I work for BBC News. My question is again in a voter turnout. Do you have any statistics on what percentage of minorities vote, and if do you think it's tiny? If it is tiny, so what's the reason behind it, or it's natural? Voter is coming naturally. What do you think?
Well, it was right. Okay. Well, yeah, thank you. First of all, about whether we observed any signs of fraud or ballot stuffing and so on and so forth. I say you with full responsibility that there was no direct observation of fraud or ballot stuffing. Of course, we observed some irregularities taking place, but this wasn't, this is not coming up to such allegations. I think that the things you mentioned about certain polling stations and certain constituencies, I think that right now all of us should pay attention to the appeal process and whether these appeals and complaints are being handled in a legal and transparent way. And this is what, if you have any issues with regards of a particular constituency, then this should be really solved according to the procedure which is there. And of course, well, we still expect that the Bangladesh authorities will, well, solve those issues as transparently and as fast as possible. Thank you very much. And the second issue about the minorities turnout, well, I mean, you might ask some questions regarding that to particular constituencies, and this is where you can also maybe draw some conclusions. Well, in our final report, we will report on that we were distributed, just as it was said, all across the country, and we were talking also to indigenous communities, to other religious and ethnic communities, and they of course sometimes expressed their, let's say, concerns regarding this procedure, but this is going to be mentioned in our final report. Thank you.
We do the next question over there, then it's you, and then the gentleman in black at the loudspeaker. Then go to the, yeah.
Excellency, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Mohsin. Over here on your right, I work for Delhi Shomuka. So you actually praised the Election Commission in your opening remark. So as a law, in the Election Commission RPO, they say any loan defaulter cannot be allowed to participate in the election. So we have seen and witnessed, I mean, there are some impartiality. I mean, the Election Commission partially gives someone to allow participate in the election, and someone isn't allowed to participate. So my first question is, do you think it is appropriate for the Election Commission to violate that law first? And my second question is, do you think Election Commission is impartial? And my last question is did you observe any impact of absence of our in this election? Thank you.
Hello. On your left, Ivars. I'm Ashur Rahman from Rekindles. I'm asking about the media's role, the local media's role, and the journalists' role from Bangladesh. What we are doing on our screen, on our newspaper, and on our social media side. What is your observation?
Hello, I'm Rathi Desas. I represent Prothomalo. In your opening statement, Mr. Ivars, you mentioned that these elections set a new benchmark for the upcoming election in the future. And also you mentioned about for the future government, they have to face some sort of challenge. So in the context of challenge, what do you mean? Whether you only refer to the election pledges they made during the campaign, or you put together reform and democratic transition of the country? Thank you.
Well, I will just answer the first questions and then pass the floor to my dear colleague Tomáš, who will be handling this one, which is extremely important one. I think that as for the Central Electoral Commission, well, we all know that the task standing before this commission has been an immense, and this commission has been revamped and restructured in a new way, and of course the key of working so that every electoral commission is of course the transparency of how does it work, and well, whether all the procedures are clear, whether you can have also in some cases well, if you want a public statement or a public evaluation of, for example, how the registration of candidates was handled,
we saw that this was really a very open and transparent process, and in that sense I have to say that our overall impression about Central Electoral Commission was positive. Of course, taking into account all the circumstances that many things have to be made anew after a prolonged period of rigged elections and no elections. As for the role of media, this is always a great concern. Of course, when I arrived here in early January, the main issue was, of course, the burning down of 2 publishing houses, which of course is also directly affecting the freedom of media and freedom of expression. I have to say that, generally speaking, the Bangladeshi media landscape is very diverse. And this, to my mind, is really an important and crucial point for any democracy, that you can get diverse information from different political perspectives and that are not dominated by anyone. And this is an impression we've got. Of course, another issue which is of great concern is, of course, the role of the social media. And we all know that this trend is raising everywhere, that social media are being misused in order to manipulate voters, in order to reproduce and distribute different kinds of fake news, AI-generated images, and so on and so forth. I think this is really the point where we really need some kind of a global solution, because this problem is very familiar to each and every democracy in the world. But as for the general approach to the media landscape, again, safety and security has been an issue. We have experienced it quite recently of journalists and of the media. And another issue is, of course, the pluralism of the media landscape. Thank you. And now over to Tomáš, please.
About future government, I think it's a really crucial issue. It's not only about the election. After the election and all the emotion and everything what the politicians are facing in these times, will be time for government. And government needs to have it any bridge with opposition. Opposition, civil society and media has absolutely crucial role to control government. It's not the blank list that you will give to new government to do everything what they want. Now, you as journalists, you as civil society of Bangladesh, and you as journalists must really control everything what they are doing. And sometimes it's need much more investigation, sometimes it's need much more transparency, because transparency is sometimes a problem in Bangladesh, and sometimes it needs much more open discussion. And I have to say, future of Bangladesh will be excellent if young people, women, NGOs, civil society will be on the board and discuss the future of your country. If your country will be fully transparent, will be open-minded, and will be supporting the reforms and democratic process, your future can be the tiger of this region. This is my political meaning.
We have one last round of questions. Gentleman here.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is me, Ahmed Reza, and I work for a television named Jumna, based in Bangladesh. And as you discussed about a lot of things about election issues, but my question is related with the post-election period. So it's about one of the debate and about the concern issues. So debate is ongoing here about the total voter turnout and the final result of the referendum. So do you have any particular comment regarding these issues, that total voter turnout and the referendum results? There is a debate is ongoing here. And my second question is about the concern, as we are used to seeing the post-election conflict, and there minority communities are often the most affected. So still are you monitoring the situation regarding the post-election period? Thank you so much.
Do we see, yeah, the lady in the back and then the gentleman in the green shirt, please.
Hello, this is Afrin Jahan and I am working from Bangladesh television on digital television here. My question is, how effectively did the election commission duties perform its duties throughout the process? Asking about election commission.
Excuse me.
Hello, I am Azhar Limun from Akun Television. From your remarks, it is clear that you have a positive observation about this election. However, after the election, reports are coming from different parts of the country about attacks on opposition. What do you think? Will this overshadow the credibility of the election?
Well, we are trying just to divide up the responses. So about the post-election period and the turnout, I think that I commented on the turnout already before enough, but as for the post-election period, I would really want to acknowledge the readiness of the main political players in this country to have a peaceful and orderly period after the elections without any expressions of violence or any other incidents. In that sense, this is really a thing to be acknowledged and to be mentioned also in our report, because of course if you have the responsibility for the country as a political party, you have to act responsibly, and this is what the main political players are doing right now, and this has to be acknowledged. And as for the minority participation, this has been an issue, and we all know that historically this has been an issue, and that's why we have to also understand that in some occasions this, past experiences may act intimidating to the participation in those elections. And I have no direct data whether this has been so, but at least when we went to the countryside and to other cities and spoke to the representatives of the minority groups, there were certain expressions of fear. What can I say? It's going to take time to heal those past problems that have been there. But what is important is that the state authorities are encouraging, that they are promoting the minority participation and not excluding them from this process. This is what democracy is. But I would like to really also my colleague Tomáš to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivars. About irregularities, it's every time happen. You cannot prevent it at all. Also, it's need to go through the Bangladesh judicial system and really have it here some independent result of the judicial system. This is not our main goal. We can give only advices how to prevent. We have it here in Bangladesh, very senior team of advisors and analysts who are really looking for the data and who are analyzing data from all the countries. Also, this is why this mission is too long, too big, and this is not only about physical observation, but it is much more about analyzing all election process. It's most important issue, and this is why we stay here 1 month plus.
Yes, thank you very much. Before we end our press conference, let me just announce three things. The first is that we are not leaving the country. Our analysts will stay here until early March, also to observe the post-election period, especially how the complaints and appeals are being handled. The second thing is that the observation presentations are not over yet. In half an hour, I am privileged to also invite you all to the next room where the observation mission of Commonwealth is going to present its results, and we have been really fruitfully cooperating with the Commonwealth and other electoral observation missions here on the ground. As for another electoral observation mission, this is the UNFREL mission, the Asian network of electoral observations. They are having their presentation tomorrow at 10 a.m. So this is where also I am privileged to invite you all, because on some occasions we are trying to provide multiple perspectives and the full picture on, and at the same time, of course, we have been also cooperating, and I thank you, Mr. President, for the cooperation. And the third thing I want to mention is, of course, happy St. Valentine's Day. Thank you very much.
Before everybody leaves, we have the preliminary statement outside together with the press release. You will receive also the Bangla version of the press release later today as a soft copy in your emails. Thank you very much.